The borders you grew up memorizing? They're already wrong. Right now, in 3 places on Earth, people are voting, printing their own money, and running their own governments. Countries in every way except one. Nobody's allowed to call them that. Yet. That's about to change. There are 193 members of the United Nations, but there are dozens of places that function like countries, with flags, armies, elections, even their own currencies, that the world simply refuses to recognize. Most of them are frozen conflicts nobody expects to move, but 3 of them aren't frozen at all. They're accelerating. A Pacific island that already voted 98% for independence. An African nation with its own military that just signed a deal with a global superpower, and an Arctic territory sitting on trillions of dollars in untapped minerals, being fought over by 3 of the most powerful men on the planet. Let's start in the Pacific. This is Bougainville, technically part of Papua New Guinea, geographically closer to the Solomon Islands, and historically the site of one of the bloodiest civil wars you've never heard of. In the 1980s, a massive copper mine here made a handful of people rich and poisoned the land everyone else depended on. The result was a decade-long civil war that killed an estimated 15,000 to 20,000 people, nearly a tenth of the population. It only ended with a peace deal in 2001. And that deal included one extraordinary promise: a future vote on independence. That vote finally happened in December 2019. The result wasn't close. 97.7% of Bougainvilleans chose full independence from Papua New Guinea. Not a slim majority, a landslide most democracies never see in their lifetime. The plan agreed by both governments is for Bougainville to become fully independent by 2027. But here's the tension. Papua New Guinea's parliament still has to ratify that result. And no government likes losing a piece of itself, especially one that used to generate a huge share of national export revenue. So the countdown is real, but it's fragile. If Bougainville succeeds, it becomes the first entirely new country born from a peaceful referendum in the Pacific in decades, and it could set a precedent every separatist movement on Earth will point to. If stories like this, the ones that never make the nightly news but are quietly redrawing the map, are your kind of rabbit hole, this channel is for you. Hit subscribe now, because the next case is even stranger than the first. Now, let's go to the Horn of Africa, to a country that has functioned completely independently for over 30 years, and that almost nobody on Earth officially recognizes. Meet Somaliland. In 1991, as Somalia collapsed into civil war and state failure, this northern region declared independence and simply kept governing itself. It has held multiple peaceful elections, something Somalia itself still struggles to do. It has its own currency, the Somaliland shilling, its own passport, its own army and coast guard. For 3 decades, Somaliland has been more stable, more democratic, and arguably safer than the country it's supposedly still part of on every official map. And yet, not one United Nations member state formally recognizes it as its own country. But that might be changing, for a very modern reason: geography and trade. Somaliland controls the strategic port of Berbera, right on one of the busiest shipping corridors on Earth. Landlocked Ethiopia, desperate for direct sea access, signed a memorandum with Somaliland for port and potential military access, a deal that functions almost like recognition, even without the word ever being used. Somalia called the deal a violation of its sovereignty. Regional powers scrambled to respond, and suddenly a 30-year frozen conflict was front-page geopolitical news again. Somaliland has also been quietly courting recognition from larger global players, offering strategic basing rights in exchange for legitimacy. It's a slow game, but for the first time in decades, Somaliland has real leverage. And leverage is exactly what turns a breakaway region into an internationally accepted state. Our final stop is the opposite of a hidden conflict. It's one of the loudest geopolitical stories of the decade: Greenland. Greenland is enormous, over 50 times the size of Denmark, the country that technically still controls its foreign policy and defense. But only about 56,000 people live there, and beneath that ice sheet sits one of the largest untapped reserves of rare earth minerals on the planet. The exact materials every phone, wind turbine, and missile guidance system on Earth depends on. As the ice melts, those resources become easier to reach, and suddenly, one of the most remote places on Earth became one of the most fought over. Greenland already has broad autonomy, its own parliament, control over most domestic policy. Independence from Denmark is not a fringe idea there. It's mainstream politics, openly debated in Greenland's own elections. Polls have repeatedly shown a majority of Greenlanders want full independence eventually. The debate is almost entirely about the timeline and the economics. The obstacle isn't desire, it's money. Denmark's annual subsidy still funds a huge share of Greenland's budget. Full independence means walking away from that safety net and betting everything on mining revenue that hasn't fully materialized yet. It's a high-stakes gamble on becoming one of the wealthiest small nations on Earth, or one of the most isolated. But with global powers now openly competing for access and influence here, Greenland has something Bougainville and Somaliland don't: the undivided attention of the entire world. That attention could be the very thing that finally pushes it toward the finish line. 3 territories, 3 completely different paths to the same destination. Bougainville already voted. It's just waiting for the paperwork of history to catch up. Somaliland has been governing itself for a generation. It's just waiting for one powerful country to finally say the word yes. And Greenland has the resources every superpower wants. It's just waiting to decide if independence is worth the price. None of this is guaranteed. Referendums get delayed. Deals fall apart. Great powers change their minds. But for the first time in decades, the pressure pushing these places toward statehood is stronger than the pressure holding them back. So here's the question. Out of these 3, which one do you think becomes an internationally recognized country first? And which one do you think never makes it at all? Drop your prediction in the comments. I read every single one. If you want to understand the world's next map before it's drawn, subscribe now, because there are a dozen more places just like these 3, and we're covering every one of them. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.